Ciao, ciao, track and field fans. Welcome to the day one instant reaction. So live from Belgrade, Serbia, I am Robert Johnson.
I'm Jonathan Galt. Well, Robert, sleep deprivation, new time zone, I don't know what it is. It's been a long day at the office. We got some track early this morning, didn't leave until late tonight. Well, not too early this morning. And we've got plenty to talk about. Day one of World Indoors is in the books. We have a medal by American distance runner, Ellie Perrier St. Pierre. We have 5 American finalists in the distance events, 5 for 5 in the morning session and qualifying. Men's 800, Bryce Hoppel and Isaiah Harris. Women's 1500, Heather McLean and Josette Norris. And the men's 3000, Dylan Maggard. We have the fastest women's indoor 60 meters for over 20 years, Mujinga Kambunji of Switzerland. You surprised, well, a little bit of a surprise, world indoor champion.
Out of lane 1.
Lane 1 or lane 8?
Actually, I think it was 8, when I think about it. Only the 4th time in history that 2 women have broken 7 seconds.
There we go.
I almost said 6, but that was a cool way to end the night. Super tight for 3rd. 4 people were given the exact same time, but surprise bronze medalist. Can't get her name right, John. Help me out.
Mary Beth Sant Price. It's a hard one to get right because you would think it's Saint Price, but it's Sant Price. Now, I wouldn't call it a huge surprise. She's been running well this year. But I guess the big surprise to me was Eva Swoboda of Poland, who was the world leader and dominating all competition this year. She doesn't even get on the podium. That was pretty crazy. But yeah, great to be in Serbia. Crowd was a little lacking Friday morning. I'm not gonna lie. Friday evening it was better. And the good thing is, like, when a Serbian is on the track or taking a jump in the field, you will know it. The crowd is very supportive of their home athletes here, which makes for a good atmosphere. Should be terrific when Ivana Veleda is jumping in the final session on Sunday night. Other than that, it comes and goes. But I enjoyed my first day here. We got 2 more good to come on Saturday and Sunday.
Let us know in the comment section if you can hear us. We're not using our normal mics. So someone please, don't want to do the full show, but we are the hardest 2 working men in track and field. We could just spend the whole show not even talking about track. We're just talking about Belgrade. On my layover in Istanbul, I was at the airport lounge, having a drink with a man who travels all over. He said that Belgrade is my favorite city in all of Europe. He said the food's amazing, the people are personable, and the pricing is reasonable. We found that to be true so far to the case, except for right now, folks. Jonathan Galt, making a rookie travel mistake, did not ask for the cab fare up front.
Yes, and I rode in this cab totally alone. I was not with my senior colleague here at all. We were not both culpable in this. It was all my fault, right?
I was FaceTiming my son. We get in the cab. We're in a rush back because John wants to start right at 11 p.m. sharp, which apologize, 7 minutes because my audio wasn't working. And then we got to try to get some food. And we get out, and he's like, 28,000. Everything here is like under 10,000.
No, it's 2,800.
Okay, 2,800. It's basically 1,000 is $10. So this is a $28 cab ride. It should have been. I think on the way there it was like $7. So I told John not to pay it, but we paid it.
I'm not going to stiff a cabbie in Belgrade. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, we got here in time, like Robert said. Little microphone issues, but we're moving past that. Time to talk some track.
Oh, now we're going to talk about our St. Patrick's Day activities. My wife might be watching them. Probably shouldn't.
I don't know if we can say everything, but just, a lot of interesting news and that sort of stuff. Maybe they'll trickle out at some point, but keep that off the record for now. Anyway, track action. I mean, we can talk about the 60, but that was probably one of the better performances. Certainly a better performance than the 3,000, but I'd rather talk about the 3,000 because it's not every day an American wins a medal in a distance event. So
yeah, let's start with that, and then we'll work our way backwards.
Yeah.
The gun goes off, and it's been hectic. We've been at the track all day, never made it back between the 2 sessions. And sometimes to be honest, and hey, other journalists do this too. They want to know what's going to happen. They go read the Let's Run preview. So the gun's about to go off, and I'm reading my own preview that I wrote about 3 days ago just to refresh myself because my long-term memory is going in my mid-40s. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This is the race we expect the 3 Ethiopians to be in the medal hunt, along with Gabrielle Dubois-Stafford of Canada and Ellie Pierre St. Pierre, PSP as we call her. And sure enough, that's what happened, right? They did take the top 5 spots, right?
Yes, and it was that way. They were basically, it was those 5 kicking for the medals at the bell. Slow first 2 kilometers, 5:59. So that's just on the 9-minute pace. All of those women can run 9-minute pace. I think there was 20 women in the field, which is a lot. They went to a straight final, no prelims, and I think 13 of them were still in contact with 4 laps to go, 800 meters to go. And at the bell, it was the 3 Ethiopians. I thought they were running 1, 2, 3, but I looked at the results. Apparently, GDS was 3rd. But essentially, it was those 3, and then GDS and Pierre St. Pierre were slightly behind, still in the same pack, but just at the back of the pack. So I was starting to I'm a little worried. I'm like, okay, Pierre St. Pierre, she's run a very smart race. She was hugging the rail for most of it, doing a good job. But if you're 5th at the bell or 4th at the bell, it can be a little problem getting past people when the pace isn't super, super hot. But she made a good move when she had to on the back straight to move up to 2nd. And her and Hailu start pulling away. Eventually, they're joined by Ejke Ute, who gets the bronze medal. Those 3 are kicking around the final turn. Coming into the home straight, I did think, I'm like, man, if Pierre St. Pierre, if she has an extra gear, this could be a gold medal. But she didn't. Hailu did a great job, actually. This was her first global finals as a senior. She was the world youth champ in the 15 back in 2017 in Kenya. She ran really well and controlled it. She did not get past once she took the lead, and Pierre St. Pierre had to take the silver, which was still a fine performance. She actually closed faster, 29.4 for Pierre St. Pierre to 29.6 for Hailu. But Hailu had the positional advantage at the bell. Even so, this is pretty crazy. If you told me, Ellie Pierre St. Pierre, she gets beat at USA's in the 1500. This was not her game plan. I asked her coach, Mark Coogan, I'm like, do you think she even runs this event if she wins the 1500 at USA's? He said probably not. So I don't know. She might also have been able to medal in the 1500, but it worked out pretty fortuitously in the end. And you got to credit Ellie Pierre St. Pierre. She was very down on herself and pissed off after getting beat in the 1500 at USA's. But she came back. She used that as fire. She dominated the 3K at USA's, and now she's a world championship medalist.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think it was 4:43, 4:08 second 1500. So in hindsight, it worked out, amazing for her. But yeah, I mean, I was with you, John. I was like, oh my God, she might win the gold, and that was gonna shock me. And so the order of finish, the top 5 was not a surprise, but the order of finish was a surprise to me. I mean, I think you and I both thought Dawit Sayum, 823 world leader, she's going to dominate this thing.
I didn't think she would dominate. I thought she'd get on the podium. I actually thought you picked Gabrielle Dubois-Stafford in your preview, and I agree. Because I thought she'd been closing so good. She's run 3:56, which is the best 1500 PB in this field. I thought this was her race. She didn't have it that last lap.
God, my own jet lag. I forgot who I picked. Yeah, we didn't expect her to dominate. I apologize. But the 2 people that I thought I picked GDS to win and Dawit Sayum, I think, to get 2nd, and neither one of the medals. I did think it was a disappointing performance for GDS. I mean, you run 14:31 with such a huge negative split, and it's just right there, and she just didn't have it at the end of this race.
You got to remember,
she's got better PRs at every distance, 800, 1500, 3000 than Pierre, but she doesn't have the medal. And if you look at their head-to-head matchups, PSP generally beats GDS.
And remember what happened early this year, the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix. GDS wins that race, 8:33 winning time, so significantly faster than tonight. She closed that in 29.0 and looked like she could have run she did not really get going until the second half of that last lap. So I saw that, I'm like, wow, if she does that in 8:40, she can do that in an 8:40 race at the World Championships, right? And if she does that, she medals. Well, if she did that tonight, the winning time was 8:41. She definitely would have medaled if she closed that fast. She only closed in 30.33, I believe, which is not terrible, but it's not good enough to get a medal. So
we got to have that. Did we have that in the recap? Hopefully it's up on the website. So she ran way faster by herself than she did today to close?
Yeah.
Wow. So I really wanted to talk to her. Totally blew me off in the mix zone. Now, she said that she was not feeling well and she needed to find a trash can. So I guess she was going to go throw up. I asked the media people, can you bring her back? I'm not trying to be a dick, but I really do think in other sports, hey, they have a requirement that you do a press conference. Here, you have to go through the mix zone, but you don't have to sit and talk to people. And I don't know. Like, to me, as an athlete, as a journalist, I do want to talk to the fourth person. I know you're disappointed, but that's the most interesting interview of all, probably, to hear the fourth person sometimes. I know they're devastated, but people want to root for you. They want to hear what happened. They want to I don't know. It was just disappointing to me that we didn't get to hear from her.
I mean, in her defense, I don't want to get thrown up on by an athlete either, but I'm not in favor of athletes blowing off the mix zone after a bad race. And definitely for her, this has to be viewed as a disappointment.
Yeah. And then I really wanted to talk to the Ethiopians to see what was up with Daiwet Sayum, talk to this young. I mean, let's think about this for a minute. You can say, oh, this is a watered down field. Do you realize that the woman who got third ran 14:14 last year and got fifth in the Olympics, ran 14:19 on the roads? Ellie Pierre, PSP, just beat her. So that's a pretty darn good woman. So it was interesting to me. There was a number of Ethiopians that had not raced in like a month. And the question was, and they'd only raced very limited schedule, was, are they going to be in better shape now or worse shape than they were a month ago? Have they just been training or something wrong? And for a lot of them, they were in worse shape. Berhar Aragawi, not good yesterday. Doesn't even make the 3,000 final. Last time we saw him race at the end of January, he's almost breaking the world record. So he didn't do well. Daiwet Sayum, she had run 2 races before today, but they were both over a month ago. She ran them within 2 days of each other. One 3,000, one 1,500. Today, not very good, by her standards.
She earlier this year in Leven, she runs the 3rd fastest time in history for this event, 8:23. If you tell me a month later she's not even going to medal at Worlds, I mean, it shows you the times are being rejiggered because of the shoes and that sort of thing, but also she underperformed tonight as well. And she seemed to be, I mean, I would say the 2 Ethiopians who weren't Hailu, so Tay and Dawet Sium, they sort of seem to be moved. Like, someone asked about team tactics and like, oh, were they working together? It's like, well, no, because they if it was a team tactic, if it was with any sort of sense, they would have been working together to push the pace, not to run 9 flat pace through the first 2 kilometers. So they seemed to be taking the lead, but they weren't really doing anything with it. They were just kind of moving around. Whereas Hailu played it more smartly, and waited until 3 laps to go to make her authoritative move. And then once she got to the front, she actually did something with the lead, and she's your winner.
Yeah. Number of people in the chats are asking, was this event on TV in the United States? Today, it was only streaming on the Peacock Network. If you go to letsrun.com, our front page, we always have the streaming information there for you. Tomorrow, it's going to be on CNBC, also regular NBC, and then Peacock as well, depending on the time frame. And then on Sunday, it's going to be on CNBC and Peacock as well. So definitely was on TV, at some level. But let's turn.
Well, can we talk a little bit more about Pierre St. Pierre? Because
that's what I was going to say. Was what do we think is going to happen with her now moving outdoors? What does this mean? We're going to have the World Championships. We've already got one commentator saying, "Hey, she's not going to medal outdoors." It's certainly a harder task to medal outdoors. And I asked her. I said, "Hey, what are you focused on? 1,500 or 5,000?" She said the double is doable, she thinks, but I think she really loves the 3,000 because it sits well to her because she's got good speed but pretty good endurance. But a lot of times it dawdles like it did today, and then it turns into basically a 1,500 meters. And she's probably just as good as these other Ethiopians are at the 1,500. So she said the focus would probably be the 1,500 for her medal shots. And let's think about who she's not going to beat if they're there. Sifan Hassan. The problem in the 1,500 is Sifan Hassan is basically, you would think, almost unbeatable. Faith Kipyegon, almost unbeatable. And then who got the 3rd medal last year? Laura Muir, right?
Laura Muir got the silver actually in Tokyo because Hassan was running her 3rd event of the meet. But then Gudaf Sagai, she didn't even run the 1,500 at the Olympics last year. Remember, she's the world indoor record holder. She's run 3:53. She ended up getting the bronze in the 5K. So if she's in the 1,500, that's another person I don't think Ellie Pierre is beating. And Then, you got GDS is going to be in the mix again.
Well,
it's tough. It's just there are two massive roadblocks if Kipyegon and Hassan run. And then it's just everyone else kind of fighting for one medal. Or maybe not at all if Sagai does it. So,
well, yeah, but I would think that, if you're a PSP fan, what do you have going for you? Well, Hassan wasn't in this race. I've asked the Dutch guys today, where is she? She's just training. I mean, when you pull up to the stadium, her picture's all over it. They have her, Ryan Krauser, and Mondo Duplantis is sort of the marquee marketing people. But someone didn't tell the meet management because she's on the outside. And these Dutch guys, we knew for over a month she wasn't coming here. She's training, blah, blah, blah. So there's no indication that she's hurt. But Laura Muir has been banged up a little bit indoors. So, if these people aren't 100%, I think she can mix it up with just about anybody else in the world except for the super studs.
I think we also got to remember that Ellie Purrier, I've talked to Mark Coogan about this. I think he thinks she was in shape to run 355 or 356 last year. She soloed a 358 from the front to win the Olympic trials in Eugene. And that to me tells me, you put her in Monaco, that's probably a 355 or a 356. But she injured her foot in that race. That's why she wasn't herself at the Olympics. So I think people, you look, when she was in the Olympic final, she was pretty far back, 10th or 11th. But that wasn't a fully healthy Ellie Purrier St. Pierre. So, 1,500, I don't know if she'd be that far behind Laura Muir if she's fully healthy this summer. But I guess the question I have for you, Robert, is do you think that this is smart to try to pursue both? I know it might be possible at Worlds, but if you're doing it at the trial, the U.S. Championships, it's going to be both those events in a 4-day span, and you've got prelims in the 1,500. So that's going to be tough. And you've also got good competition in the 5K. I mean, if Carissa Schweizer and Elise Cranny, running that event fresh, and Alicia Monson maybe, because none of them will have had to do the 10K at the same meet, that's going to be a tough trio to beat. So, but then you look at the recent medalists, I guess, you'd say maybe it's a little easier to medal in the 5K at the global champs than it is in the 15.
Wait, what? You think it's easier to medal in the 5?
I think from an absolute sense, in terms of Americans, where American skill sets are. But I don't know, Constance Klosterhalfen was a medalist in 2019.
Fair enough, but call me a genetic. Walden doesn't like it when I talk about genetics. I feel like the white man's doomed. The white woman is doomed at 5,000. It's not nearly as good. I see these 14.0 type times. And I'm like, no way. But maybe I'm selling her short. She just did beat a 14.14 woman. Millie was 3,000. I just think that she's much better suited. 3,000 is a really good event for her. I think she's much better suited at the global level 1,500. She's shown no indication that she's going to be able to break 14.20, which is I kind of think you need to be able to do to medal. So I think she should go 1,500.
I agree with you for the same logic. Yeah. So I think that's sound. I mean, anything else what stands out to you from this race? I thought solid run from Jessica Hall in 6th place. What'd she say in the mix on to you, Robert?
She was pretty happy with it. She said she had a bit of a rocky February, and she said, realistically, I mean, you don't have to be a genius to break down the top 5 or ahead of everybody else, but it helps to be a genius like me, notice it. But she's like, this is realistically as good as I was going to do. And she said she had a rocky February, so she was positive, pleased with, I think she performed a little bit better than she even would have thought maybe. So moving forward outdoors, that gave her some confidence. Alicia Monson was kind of the same thing. She thought 7th was pretty satisfactory result for her, right? She was obviously dreaming of a medal. But
no, I don't even think she was dreaming of a medal. I think she knew these championship style 3Ks, she doesn't have a good enough kick yet to be a factor in them. But that said, part of the reason she dropped down was to sort of improve on that. We already know she can run fast in hard 5Ks, hard 10Ks. She was the U.S. cross country champion this year. But she did run fast. Remember, she ran in the 840s to win Millrose back in 2019 when she was in college, and she ran 831 this year at Millrose, 829, somewhere around there. She's run fast, but in a 3K, but getting onto a team, running 7th in the World Championship final, I think that's good experience for her. It's improved her speed a little bit. She'll go back outdoors and work on the longer events. But she's still very young. She's only about 23. So this was definitely a step forward. She got better this indoor season, tangible signs of progress, and I think you can't complain at all if you're Coach Jathan Ritzenheim.
No, I agree. So let's talk about the 60 because that was the last event. We got a sprint fan here from Poland, and it was a really fascinating thing. To be honest, we're trying to get everything done. We start writing some of the recaps before the whole action's done because we wanted to get on this show. We wanted to get done at a reasonable hour. And I forgot the 60 final was tonight. So after the 60 semis go off, I start typing up the recap. And, I viewed Eva Svoboda. She ran 7:03 in the semi. She's the world leader, 6:99. It looked like she was going to be medaling. Mikhaia Briscoe also ran 7:03. She ran that both in the first round, which was a lifetime PB, and in the semifinal. But there were 6 women that ran 7:08 or faster altogether. So I'm like, it's going to be extremely close for the medals. And it was a crazy race. Out of lane, I forgot which we determined, 1 or 8.
You said 8.
Virginia Kambunji of Switzerland wins it. And talking to her afterwards, it was pretty interesting in the press conference. She's like, I didn't feel good this morning. I just was in a bad mood. And then I felt better when I came back in the stadium. And she's like, I was kind of initially annoyed that I was going to be an 8. And I'd like to be by the other runners and be in the thick of it. But she's like, I realized there's nothing I can do about it. She's like, I knew it would take under 7 to win. And I thought I was capable of doing that. And she did it. 6:96. Huge PB for her.
Yeah, Robert, that's a historic time. Like in terms of, that's the fastest time in the 21st century. The last time anyone ran faster or as fast was 1999. Katerina Thanu. Wasn't she one of the Olympic medalists who got popped from Greece? So that was the last time anyone ran the same time. And then the last time anyone ran faster than 6:96, someone by the name of Marion Jones in 1998. So there is definitely some suspicious times up there on the all-time list. 6:96, it's hard. The world record is 6:92. So she doesn't have much gap there. Very impressive by Kambunji when it mattered most. And then Swoboda, unfortunately for our Polish friend here, I mean,
well, it's crazy.
They raised the level of competition. I mean, she ran 7:04. That's not a bad race. You would think beforehand, 7:04, that'll probably, before the meet, you probably would have said that gets you on the podium. But the way the heats were going, you could tell it was probably going to take time a little under 7 to win it. And 7:04 ends up getting, it gets you the bronze for Sam Price, but it also gets you 6th place for Sharika Jackson. So it was just a very fast race. If you look, the top 6, 5 of them set personal bests.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, you run the same time as somebody else and you're 6th in the final. You're 3rd, you're a lot happier. It's like, it's just, I mean, back in the day before they had the, FAT, it would have been impossible. It probably would have been a dead heat, right? Would you hand out 6 medals? So it would have been really interesting. But no, I mean, Svoboda has got to be upset. She came in undefeated on the year. Let's look at her meet results. 7 flat in the first meet, February 11th. 7:10 in Dusseldorf. 7:03 in Turin. And then 6:99 again in Turin. So basically every meet except for one, she had run 7:03 or faster, and then she runs 7:04. So she's got to be disappointed with that. She came to the mix zone. She was definitely not happy. I can tell you that much. But
we got a few people. We got someone clamoring like, "Oh, shouldn't Mary Beth St. Price and Mikhaia Briscoe, the 2 Americans who got the bronze and silver medals respectively, shouldn't they get sponsored now?" I mean,
well, I think that they will. And the Mary Beth St. Price, how do you say it? Mary Beth
St. Price, I believe.
St. Price, amazing story. I'm like, I'm like, what? I mean, no offense. I'm like, there's a white American sprinter. Who is this woman? How come I've never heard of her? I go to the NCAA meet. We're not normally that focused on sprinting at NCAAs because there's a lot going on. And then I started looking her up, type her in, TFRS, to look up her college times. She's at Colorado State. She doesn't even make the 100-meter NCAA final. Doesn't even make it to Eugene at all, or the semifinals. So, and then then I realized, wait a minute, she went somewhere else to college. She went to Oregon, NCAA Power. She made the 60 there once in NCAAs, didn't make the final. So this is a woman who's never made an NCAA final. Now she's 3rd in the world. So there was some reference to what she's overcome in the press conference. So I asked her to elaborate on that. And it's a really cool story. She got a bone density test at Oregon. She had a bunch of stress fractures, and she eventually had a bone density test. And she was medically advised her bone density was so low to retire from the sport. So that's what she did. She was done, and she quit for 2 years and 9 months. No running, no competing. And she just said, I just knew that I wasn't done. I missed running. She had a passion for it. And now she's got a bronze medal. So I just think that's.
Oh, it's a great story. But all right, let me ask you this. In 2016, an American woman won the world title in 60 meters. I'm going to ask you her name. You don't know it. So it's not even bother. I'm not even going to bother letting you answer. But I'm going to say her name, Barbara Pierre. Do you know the name?
No, I do not.
Yeah, she won it 6 years ago, world champion in this event, and you've never heard of her. So you're not getting like this. It's the 60. Sometimes like Sharika Jackson drops down. She was the bronze medalist from the 100 meters outdoors. She runs it, but sometimes you're just a much better 60-meter runner than you are in the 100. And the 100 is really where the glory and the attention is. You know, if you look at Mikaya Briscoe, she was an NCAA champion in the 100 in college, but she's more of a 60-meter specialist. Same with Sam Price. Same with Swoboda as well. Are anything going to be factors outdoors? That's the just. I would like to see more contracts in the sport and more sponsorships, but.
Well, but what do you mean? Are most of these distance runners factors outdoors? They get deals. There's guys for the Brooks Beast that never made a team making 6 figures. What's your point?
Well, I guess that's a fair point. I'm not saying they shouldn't be sponsored. I'm just saying there is a difference. And when you go, it's just different. Like you don't have a lot of events in the distance events where if you're really, really good at this one distance indoors, you're suddenly not good outdoors, right? Like there's no, like the 800, there's an 800 outdoors. The 3K, you can do the 1500, you do the 5,000. The 60, there's no 60 outdoors. It's the 100, and it's a different event.
Fair enough.
But yeah, not meant to be saying, oh, don't sponsor them. Just sort of saying it's, it doesn't translate the way that other events do to their outdoor equivalent. All right. There's a reason I don't talk about the sprints that much anyway, because I'm not really don't tell anyone, but I'm not really a sprints expert, Robert.
I am.
Okay. Do we talk about the field event finals? Give them a little love. We did have a couple world champions crowned. I mean, the women's shot put I thought was pretty exciting because no one had thrown over 20 meters in all of 2022, and then we had it on back-to-back attempts. Chase Ely threw a 1 meter personal best in the world championship final in round 5 to take the lead. Ridiculous. I'm like, oh my God, this is an amazing story. Americans going to win the shot put. Like, this is nuts. The very next throw, Oriol Dongmo, who was the world leader before the meet from Portugal, she throws over 20 meters for the first time in her life, 2043. She takes the lead. She gets the win. So the only 2 20-plus meter throws of 2022 came tonight in round 5 of the World Championship final on back-to-back throws. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then the men's long jump was kind of just domination by the Olympic champion, Miltos Tentoglu of Greece. His first jump of the competition, he gets out. It's a big one. It was like 8.5 or something. I was like, okay, that's big. And he's looking around and he sees there's no official raising a flag. Robert, you're blocking the screen. There is no official raising a flag. There's just this sort of cone that flashes if it's a foul or a fair. It's either green, it's a good jump. Red, it's a foul. He looks over, it's red, and he's like, what the hell? He immediately goes to the officials and just like, that was a fair jump. It looked fine. Okay, Robert, this is what happens when...
That's not affecting us.
Okay. Well, Robert's trying to get some light on us.
Weldon's upset that the lighting is not.
He's going to have to deal with the subpar lighting, unfortunately. That's just what we've got at the moment. So he goes to the officials and he's like, I didn't foul. And they show in the replay, I mean, his foot might have been a toenail over the line. If that, I feel like it was really, really close. Anyway, he goes out the very next jump. Basically, I think he might have gone 5 centimeters further or something. 8.55. He's not touched the rest of the competition. So he's now the Olympic champion and the world indoor champion.
Yeah, and I looked it up. I mean, 8.55, I think that's tied for the 8th best performance in history. I think 5 men had jumped farther. It's the longest jump indoors, and since 2009. So it's just, massive jump. There was some excitement in the battle for the silver and bronze. Sweden's Tobias Mottler went from 5th to 2nd on the last jump, 8:38, which is actually pretty darn good too, lifetime PB. Knocking Marquise Dendy down to 3rd, and Jerian Lawson, the American, off the podium into 4th. Dendy's now medaled at the last 3 World Indoors. He kind of was, I heard him talking. I interviewed him first, and then he was talking to the USA staffer, and she's like, well, I'm excited for Worlds to be in Eugene, because the last time it was in Eugene, last time it was in Oregon, I won the title. That was the indoor title, of course.
Yeah, I think that's our field event talk. We do have a bunch of distance prelims. It seems like a lifetime ago, Robert, but it was only this morning. And I'm imagining, even though maybe I'm selling our viewers short because this is the dedicated if you're listening or you're watching this, but it was an early start time for Americans, especially if you were on the West Coast. So there was a bunch to talk about. We had a bunch of prelims and very good morning session for the Americans. Like we said at the top of the show, all 5 of them advanced to the final. I thought Isaiah Harris he looked the best of anyone at any prelim the entire morning. Bryce Hoppel and Josette Norris both looked very in control. I think they're absolute medal threats. Dylan Maggard got an auto spot. He's not going to be a factor in the final, but pretty good for an unsponsored guy to make the final. And the one person I was a little worried about was Heather McLean. And it's interesting because we had this debate before the meet on the regular podcast earlier this week. Who's more likely to medal, Josette Norris or Heather McLean? And I'm like, well, Heather won USA. She has this big kick. And after tonight, I can admit I'm totally wrong. I mean, Josette looked so much better and, didn't have to struggle to qualify at all. McLean might have been in a tougher heat, but, she didn't get an auto spot. She did advance on time, but I think pretty clear to me which one of them is the real threat to medal in the final.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, McLean did beat her at USA's. And I don't think you can judge McLean on how she did today in the final, because she did at the Olympic trials last year. I mean, she only got in the final because there was a foul. To me, it looked like she wasn't even one of the best people in the semi, and then she makes the team. And you can tell there's a mental component going on with her. She's like, I learned a lot today. So maybe the flip switches. But the reason why I thought Norris is better, just the PR is so much the seasonal best is so much faster, and the PR is so much faster. And when we talked to her after the race, we said, okay, can you compare your fitness to last year when you're running 3:59? She's like, I think it's better. My workouts are going better. Now, sometimes when you're training, there's a problem. You'll subconsciously sort of race your workouts. Like, what you did last year and you want to think you're in better shape. You force those workouts, it doesn't necessarily pay off. But if she's not forcing it, the times are better. Watch out what she can do, sort of in the final, because I think
we've got a killer in Gudolf Sagai, the world record holder. If she goes out and just tries to run 3:55 or 3:56, which she is known for dropping like a 60 on the first lap, she is not afraid to go hard. So I wouldn't be shocked if we saw that. But I think a fast race could very well help Josette Norris. If she thinks she can run 3:59 on faster right now, I don't think there's many other women in the field who could do that. So I thought she looked very good. And yeah, McLean, if it comes down to a kick, like you said, Robert, she does. She has had a knack for, apart from the Olympics. She didn't make the final, but at the trials last year, she runs her best race of the year in the Olympic trials final. This year, she ran her best race so far in the USA final. Now she's in a World Championship final, so you never know.
No, but I mean, I think it's hard to read too much into the 1500. I would actually like to go back. To me, the 800 men's 800 prelims were more telling, but I'm wondering, is it a false signal or is it legitimate? Like, again, most of these viewers probably didn't watch these races, and you see all the Americans qualified. If you were actually just watching the race, to me, it was very troubling for Bryce Hoppel, in the sense of some 17-year-old Kenyan, who was 5th in his last race before Worlds, just blasted him over the last 200. And he looked significantly better. Now, when we talked to Hoppel afterwards, did he say directly he was holding back, John?
He said, I was trying to conserve as much energy as possible for the final.
That might have been really smart, because when you look at it, and the 17-year-old Kenyan, just watching it, looks so.
He has a name. It's Noah Kibet. Just for the record, he was the bronze medalist at the World Under-20s last year.
So he looks so amazing just based on the gap that he put on everybody. But I made a nice chart in our recap. Excuse me, where he closed in 26.94 in that heat and 148.31. So that's basically almost tied for the slowest heat of the day. There was another heat that was 148.32. But that heat that was 148.32 was a 100th of a second slower. They closed in 25.99, almost a full second faster, the final 200. So the close wasn't that fast compared to the other heats and how slow the time was. And Hoppel's way off that pace. But if he's conserving energy, I'm giving him off that. Heat number 2, Marco Arop of Canada, who was sort of the man after the Olympics, didn't make the Olympic final, and then started winning a bunch of diamond leagues. He looked great in Heat 2. Closed in 26.43 in a 148.1 race. He said he was pretty surprised to be here, right, John? He had some hiccups. He was kind of getting a late start to his indoor training, and then he hopped in a mile. Didn't go as well as he wanted, but he said he knew he was fit. Ran 1:800, 146, and is really coming into fitness. So I think he's somebody that certainly could be a medal contender.
He's the one, Bryce Hoppel, I asked, who are you? It's a deep field, a lot of medal contenders. I'm like, who are you most concerned by? He said Marco Arop. Now, maybe that goes back. They were kind of rivals in college in the NCAA system, but Arop was as good as anyone after the Olympics last year. So he's definitely a threat. Bit of a bigger guy. I always think it's a little trickier for the big guys indoors. Arop even admitted that himself. But, yeah, he won his heat.
And then Garcia, Spain, who beat Hopper early in the year, right, at New Balance Indoor Grand Prix. He had the best close of anyone, 25.99.
He was also the most excited of anyone to win that heat. Afterwards, he was fist pumping. He was celebrating. And I tried to stop him in the mix zone to do an interview. He said, sorry, my English isn't very good. I would barely able to understand you. But he wanted to emphasize he was very happy that he won the race. He was sort of doing fist pump. So I thought it's kind of easy to get carried away sometimes with the people who win the heat. You're like, oh, man, they won. But I also do think you had to run – there were no time qualifiers. You had to get top 2 to win the heats. So you were sort of seeing close to their best selves from a lot of these athletes, unless it's someone like Hoppel. And so the way he ran, the way that Isaiah Harris ran in Heat 4, and the way that Noah Kibet ran to win Heat 1, I was very impressed by those three. But the Americans, if Isaiah Harris ran like he did today in the final, he's going to medal.
Well, Nathan on Facebook wants to know, did Harris go too hard? 26.35, 147. He dominated that heat. If you thought the Kenyan was good, by how much distance he put in the hobble, Harris killed everybody. So the final is tomorrow. There's no gap. So I was wondering if it was going to be Sunday or not. I think it's one of those things. Let's be honest. Last week in the NCAA meet, they ran 260 meters in the span of 20 minutes, and the guy ran faster in the second one than he did the first one. So if Harris does well, people are not going to be thinking he went too hard in the semi. If he doesn't do well, people are like, oh, he went too hard in the semi. So I just think he looked amazing, and he sounded really confident afterwards. He's like, look, I'm with the Brooks Beach for the first time. I have a new training. I feel like it really suits me well. So, if you've been on the circuit for a while, I have to think logically, most people, if they really analyze the training, why am I going to be much better than last year? Well, if you're not changing things up, you can be absorbing the training better, but he is changing things up. So it's an easy mental jump to make, I'm going to be better. So, it's also interesting. He said he might run the 4x4. After the meeting, we're kind of saying, we've been talking to Donovan Brazier, and John's like, did you give Donovan a hard time for not running the Open 8? And I said, John, give him a hard time. You ought to be thanking him for not running the Open 8. Because if Donovan Brazier did run the Open 8, it's very possible that Hoppel or Harris, who both have a chance to win the final, might not even be on the team. So I guess, it's possible somebody, we could have gotten the wild card. Was the wild card this year or last year for that event? I think it was this year, right? Because Elliott, by the way, one of the bigger news.
Elliott Giles got injured in the warm-up, second fastest man in history in the indoor 800 heat DNS, so he's out. And the interesting thing, Robert, do I come clean here? I didn't even actually get to see the last 200 of Isaiah Harris's race because of the setup in the mix zone here in Belgrade. Normally, mix zones, which is where we interview all the athletes, have TV monitors broadcasting the meet because you have to walk a fair distance to go from the mix zone to actually seats in the press tribune. It's not really possible to go back and forth. You need to stay down when there's heat prelim after prelim. And we found a way around this. We did find a stream of the meet, but the internet's a little spotty down at a lower level. So I watched most of his race, and then it cuts out with like a lap to go. And I'm just like, what happened? And I see he won the race, and everyone's telling me how great he looked the last lap. So I'm just sort of taking this as a given that he looks better than everyone else, but I didn't actually see the final 200.
Confessions of a Journalist by Jonathan Galt.
Full transparency. I don't want to sell people a bill of goods here, but from what I've heard, he looked good. He certainly sounded confident in the interview. And I'm excited to see what he does. He joined a new group. They had the silver medalist in 2018 with Drew Windle. Maybe they could get another one in 2022.
We haven't talked about the men's 3,000. Big news there, actually. We haven't even mentioned in the whole show. Berehu Aragawa. I think I may briefly mention it earlier. I'm not sure. Berehu Aragawa. I mean, this is the guy. Again, we're talking about like what are your medal chances outdoors. This is the guy one spot ahead of Grant Fisher in the 10,000 last year. Fisher was fifth. Aragawa was fourth. He runs one race this year indoors. He almost breaks Daniel Cohen's 3,000 meter world record, but he hasn't raced since then. So we're like, that did strike me as odd. It's kind of like Jared Naguse. He only ran one race at ACCs. That's so light. It seems odd.
Well,
if Aragawa's in world record shape, why would he try to take another crack at the world record? Instead, he doesn't race at all, shows up here and looked like a shadow of himself. So he's out. He's not even in the final. So that's not only good news for the final for any people like Mark Scott, BTC, hoping to medal, but it's also good news for someone like Grant Fisher outdoors because, Fisher's taken a step up this year, but it looked like Aragawa had also taken a step up to that 726 indoor 3,000. But if he's out and banged up, Grant Fisher is really, really good. So if you're not on your game at Worlds, you're going to lose to Grant Fisher.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things worth noting here. It was a little concerning him race for a while, but it was because his last race was in January. Some of the Ethiopians who last raced in February, like Sayum, you would say, well, okay, but what are they? They're going to fly over to. They're not going to have any indoor races to do in Ethiopia. So to go to Europe from Ethiopia to run a race like that, it's kind of an ordeal. You get in a couple of races while you're there, then you probably just go back and train for a month. It's not like, oh, they didn't race in they don't have a national championships. They just pick that team off of time, right? So, but the fact that he didn't race at all in February or the first 2 weeks in March, I think that was a little concerning. Yeah, he didn't look like himself. He was well off the pace, finished sixth in his heat, didn't advance on time. I thought a couple of takeaways. Well, first of all, his absence in the final, Robert, you said it helps everyone, but I also think it helps the kickers a lot. Like, I think Jordy Beamish's medal chances just went up because I was talking to him after the race, and he was like, oh, yeah, I think the final's going to go fast. Like, there's no way that it's running 7:51 again, like a prelim was. And I'm thinking to myself, he's probably right. You got all these three Ethiopians, but then it's like, I don't think he knew that Aragawi wasn't in the final. That race may not have happened yet. So you take him out. Aragawi, he's the guy who tried to break the world record. I think he is the most likely of anyone to have pushed the pace in the final. Barega, he kicked his way to an Olympic title in the 10K last year. I think he trusts his kick. I think Goma trusts his kick. So maybe those two team up, but I think it's less likely than if Aragawi is in the race. The last three winning times at World Indoors have been 8:14, 7:57, and 7:54. So if that is the winning time again on Sunday, Beamish might actually be in with a shot. So I think it changes the race dynamics in the final. And then you look at the other guys who ran well. Barega looked very impressive. I thought Beamish looked – he basically, he was hanging back and was told just to key off of Barega and Adel Michal of Spain, who ran 7:30 earlier this year. He did that perfectly. He gets to the front when he needed to at the end, just had to go wide in the home straight, and he closed very well in the last lap. And Yeah, I don't know. Anything else stand out to you from those prelims?
Yeah, Mark Scott in the third heat. So, folks, we saw it with GDS and we saw it with Mark Scott. There is not an official rule barring Bowerman Track Club athletes from racing. It's just the Americans are less likely to do it because it's harder to make the teams in America. But he ran 12:57. He's been training all year with Mohamed and Grant Fisher. Runs the 12:57 indoors, and then so the last 3 weeks have been different for him. He went over to Europe to run the British trials and has been working on his speed. He ran a 1500, so he's been sharpening up because when we had Grant Fisher on the podcast, Grant's like, oh, the training for the 10K and the training for the World Indoors is a lot different. Well, apparently it wasn't any different until the last 3 weeks. But Mark Scott's like, I've wanted to do this race for a long time now. I've never done a major indoors. He's never even done European indoors. He's like, I want to get, he thinks he has the tools to compete here, and he wants to use this as a springboard for the outdoors. So, he acknowledged, like, hey, it would be great to have a faster 10,000 meter PB if I've been in that race with those guys. But he sounded confident, but he went for the win here. The top four are making it. Fifth place in his heat was 7:57.24. He wins it in 7:54.90. And he's like, it's not going to hurt me. I just want to spin my legs a little bit. Gives me some confidence. So, I just thought that was interesting that he wanted to win the heat.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is his first appearance at an indoor championship. So, yeah, maybe winning the heat, if it helps him be more confident for the final and thinking he can do it again in the final, good for him. I also just don't think, I think there are several better kickers than him in this race. So that could be an issue. I wouldn't predict him to medal, but he'll be in the medal hunt. 12:57, absolutely have to be a factor. The way I see it right now in the final, Goma of Ethiopia, Lemaitre Goma, the Olympic silver medalist in the steeple, and Solomon Barega, they both won that heat. They both look good. I think Barega is the guy to beat. I picked him before this meet. I don't know if I made it officially, but my head, that's who I was picking. I saw nothing to disabuse me of that notion after today's prelims. What about you, Robert? How do you see the final shaking out?
And normally I don't like the concept of he's a winner, but I do like that concept. Barega's the winner. It was I talked to him. His English is better than most Ethiopians. And he's like, yeah, there's a target on my back, but, he looked pretty good. Now, he said he's only been training for a month, which can't be right because he raced over a month ago. So he's not in top form. I don't think he's in Olympic gold medal form right now. But, yeah, I picked Barega, Gurma, and Krop of Kenya. And we've been thinking that the Kenyan 5,000 guys aren't any good anymore, but they were fine today. In the first heat, Jacob Krop went down early, ends up auto-qualifying. And then in the third heat, Daniel Bino was right there with Mark Scott. So if you're talking Mark Scott as a medal contender, then you've definitely got to talk about the Kenyans, as well.
Well, I think it's interesting, Robert. You say Barega is a winner, and I do view him as a winner. Again, he's the Olympic champion, but he's raced Lemaitre Goma 3 times this year. He's lost 2 of them. So those are all fast races. Winning times there were 7:30, 7:31, and 7:34. Yeah, but they're all very close races. But I'm just saying he already got beat 2 guys by this guy. He's now has to face in the World Championship final.
Yeah, they were close, but he won the last one, which is the most recent one. So that's why I'm giving him the edge there.
Well, I think we covered all the distance prelims, right? And was there anything else of note that happened this morning? I was a little surprised, I'll admit, that the U.S. didn't get anyone into the semifinals of the women's 400. Lena Arby and Jessica Beard, both of them were off their best, ran about 52.7. I know America's not sending their absolute best. The big guns don't run indoors, and then you've got the collegians running NCAAs, but just America is supposed to be that's the bread and butter of the United States is the 400 meters. Not to have any women in the semifinals is pretty shocking to me.
Yeah, we're not even talking final. We're talking semifinal. Crazy. Tomorrow it's going to be interesting. In the morning, we're going to have the women's 800 heats, the men's 1,500 heats. They get underway. And in the evening, you've got the opposite of those genders in the final. You've got the men's 800 final. And it'll be 7:10 here, so that'll be 2:10 on the East Coast p.m. And then You'll have the women's 1,500 meter final at 8:35 here, which will be 3:35 on the West Coast. So, set your weekend schedule now for those races.
And Robert, we didn't even talk about what I think is the most exciting event of the meet. It all happens tomorrow. It's the men's 60. It starts tomorrow in the morning, 5:45 a.m. First round heats. I don't expect anything crazy to go on in those. But then you've got the semifinals in the evening, 1:40 p.m. Eastern time. The final, it's the final event of the night, 9:20 Belgrade, 4:20 in the United States on the East Coast. Marcel Jacobs and Christian Coleman. I mean, I'm very excited about that. Two big-time stars. The winner gets – I don't know if you can call the winner the fastest man in the world. It's still kind of the Olympic champion in my mind, but it is going to be the world champion. Gold medal is on the line. It doesn't get much better than that in this meet.
Well, you can call him the fastest man in the world if he's named Marcel Jacobs.
True. So, yeah, that all happens 3 rounds tomorrow, 1 in the morning, 2 in the evening. That should be good. And if we learn one thing today is that straightaway is pretty darn fast on this track. So we got the world record holder in there in Coleman.
Oh, I think the track is very fast. The jumpers were saying that. I mean, you're watching some of the best long jumpers in the world, and some of them were so off their marks. It was unbelievable. So that was interesting. Now, John, I think we've broken it down enough. Do y'all want to hear about Serbia? We probably should give them a tour of the apartment. Got an amazing Airbnb. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow night once we clean up.
Yeah, it's plugged. You got too many things. Well, it's plugged into too many things.
I can do it on my phone. I can walk around with my phone. We have a foosball table in here.
That's really all you need to know.
Pretty much. That's it.
And we're now in quiet hours, so we can't. We've been at the track all day. We don't have much free time. And we could have unwind with that, but we're supposed to keep it quiet after 10 p.m. But I do think, let's talk about Serbia. I bet, I doubt many of our listeners have been to or ever will go to Serbia, so we might as well give them the lowdown, right?
Yes. They celebrate St. Patrick's Day here. They had green beer in the bar, an Irish bar last night.
They sold out of Guinness. I rolled up at like 10:15 p.m. It was packed, and I was like, "Can I get a Guinness?" The bartender just smiles at me. He's like, "No, they sold out a while ago." So that was the one thing we were missing. But otherwise, it was pretty good time. And
there's a lot of smoking in this country. And smoking in the bars and the restaurants. It's like America from. Well, when did they ban smoking in New York State when I was living there? Probably about 15 years ago. So.
No, I lived in America 15 years ago. There was nowhere near this much smoke. When I got here, the airport smelled like smoke. My cab smelled like smoke. The bars and restaurants smell like smoke.
If you're a smoker, you definitely should take a vacation. Your cigarette packs about $4 or $5. The guy was telling me. So you can do that. Now,
food's cheap too. I had a great meal last night, Serbian restaurant. So it was a really nice, turkey with this mushroom sauce. I got some bread. I got a salad. All of it for under $20. It's just, the price is it's very cheap at the restaurants. You can get a nice big filling meal for a very affordable price.
The only negative, and I don't know if I want to get this out there because I'm in the best city in Europe. But nothing's perfect, folks. Nothing's perfect.
Excuse me. Correction. London is the greatest city in Europe.
No, London's not. London has sold their soul to the devil. They took all the money from those damn oligarchs and now don't want them there anymore. So shame on you. John's from London or something. We don't want to hear John.
Yeah, Belgrade's certainly not pro-Serbia, pro-Russia in any way, Robert, right?
So anyways, the biggest negative here is I'm not sure why. Even an athlete commented on this. Between the sessions, we were going to use the restroom. They don't have toilet paper in the stadium. So you need to either use your napkin or bring it from home. So tomorrow we'll be bringing it from home. But one of the athletes, I'm like, what about for y'all? Somebody came up. I was talking to an athlete. I was like the second event of the day, and there was only like 10 squares left. I don't know what's going to happen. I was like, that's going to be a problem. So
I found the toilet paper, Robert. You just didn't look hard.
No, I looked everywhere, John. I went to several different bathrooms. Even athletes were saying it. So that was the biggest negative. I wonder if we should reveal some of the interesting things. We did hear this. I don't think we should get the details, but people are like, why is Donovan Brazier running the 4.4 here? Interesting theory floated to us was that, so for most athletes, in your contract.
Well, Robert, I'm not sure if we should go into the specifics here.
I'm not going to go into the specifics. I'm just going to go into the theory. The theory makes sense. Most athletes, if you win a world title, an individual world title, it goes into your base, and you get let's say you get a $50,000 bonus. Well, then you also make $50,000 extra every year until your contract is up. But for relay runners, they very specifically say that it does not apply to a relay, because if you run in the first heat of the 4x4, they're not going to want to roll your base up. And so much of the relay winning is that. But one person here speculated, like maybe they don't have the boilerplate template in there, like for Brazier. Maybe it just says world title. Now, I think this would be for lawyers to argue about. Like, if it doesn't have it in there, would it automatically roll up? I mean, if I'm Nike, I said, hey, man, we meant individual title. And the agent says, no, you didn't. We're going to roll it up into the base if they win the 4x4 gold.
No, Robert, we've had situations like this.
I would
ask Kyle Marber about how lucrative the world record at the 2015 World Relays was for him.
It was. If I'm the agent, if I'm the shoe company, I just say no and tell the agent not to push it, and the agent's not going to want to push it because he doesn't want to run a relationship with Nike. But anyways, this was the theory that they thought that he could get a big bonus for winning the 4x4 that would roll over for multiple years. And since he's already a world champion, the bonus would be astronomical. So interesting theory. No idea if it's true or not. So, yeah, they are. There's definitely a pro-Russian sentiment here. I'll tell you that much. Asked a few guys at the St. Patrick's Day festivities what they thought. So don't want to get into that. Really.
Do we want to talk about the one thing I thought was interesting? I learned this today. In Serbia, it's illegal to display the Kosovo flag because Serbia doesn't recognize Kosovo as an independent country. Problem is, there are some athletes from Kosovo competing in the meet today. So if you look, Robert, in the results system, every other country has a flag next to that name except Kosovo. And in the 1500 prelims, one of the athletes, she had a black tape over part of her singlet, which I assume showed the flag. So sort of some interesting geopolitics that goes on in this country, or goes on at this meet.
Wow. Yeah, so it's against the law to show the flag, I think. But I can't believe they made her tape it up.
I assume that's what's happened because I don't know what was under that black tape, but I have a pretty good guess.
I would have taken that tape right off. Wow. Well, hopefully people heard us. We had a little audio problems with my 3 mics that I brought. So we're using a standard mic. It's been fun. Try to get some better lighting for tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I think that's about it from day one in Belgrade. We'll have lots to talk about Saturday, and then a great final session on Sunday is going to be terrific. If you can only see one session for the weekend, make it the final session on Sunday, because you got all finals. You got both 4x4s. You got Ingebrigtsen. You got Grant Holloway. You got Veleda, the Serbian, in the long jump. That's going to be house is going to be pumped and rocking. So, and Keely Hodgkinson, the 800 final as well. So that's really the session to watch. But
that'll be 12 to 2 East Coast time on Sunday.
Yeah.
For our American visitors. Be kind of late here, I guess.
Not too late. Ends at 8 o'clock. It's earlier than tonight. So, yeah, maybe we'll have time to hit the bars again one more time, Robert. Find that Guinness. We missed out on St. Paddy's Day.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a supporting club member. For those of you listening podcast.